Yes, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this live discussion. Hello. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, if you are getting my voice clear, can you please write down in the chat box? Okay. So, we had very interesting session on the tall buildings on the last Sunday. And before that, we had a session for the low rise structures for the wind force calculation. And if everything goes right, then we are planning to have a separate dedicated session on the wind tunnel testing, maybe on the around let's say 15th of November, if everything goes right. So that's the way we are planning. Okay. Thank you, Mr. We planned actually in this session that we will be having a discussion about our online course, which is a GEO-STR-001. So what we planned actually that myself and Vivek Mitra will be giving introduction about this course, and there are very much interesting details which we have received from the social media. So that's what we wanted to share with you all. Now, unfortunately, what happened that Mitra could not join into the live stream, but he is there uh, into the live chat. So he will be responding your all queries, your all questions through the live chat today. Yeah. So welcome Vivek Mitra on the board. Yeah. And once again, good morning to everyone, and welcome to this live discussion. So let me tell you very quickly the overall vision of these course. Of course, we discussed in one of these sessions that whenever we talk about, let's say, the cost optimization and safety of the structure. So at that time, the interface between geotechnical engineer and structural engineer is extremely important. Now when we see these two discipline as an individual discipline, let's say about structural engineering and let's say about geotechnical engineering, so these two discipline themselves are very broad in nature. But what I have experienced in my career, that there sometimes maybe because of the pressure of the project, or maybe because of the let's say the processes are not synchronized, and because of that there is not adequate or appropriate interface which is happening between the structural engineer and the geotechnical engineer. And I have seen in my career that it actually can make your project, or it can break your project. And also we have seen that let's say when we talk about the students, whenever they pass out from the college, so at that time they are not aware about this practical aspect. So that is also one of the aim for this course, that we want to make the students industry ready, right? So this is the overall vision of the course. Like, see, where we are going to focus exclusively on the interface area. So we are not going to focus say exclusively on the detailed structural engineering or say detailed geotechnical investigation, but we attempt to focus on the interface area. And we have gathered say all practical aspects based on my experience and based on the experience of the Vivek Mitra. Okay, so there are a few comments. Yeah, good morning, Harish bhai. So what we are going to discuss in today's session. Uh, See, first of all, I will just give you very quick introduction about this course. Second, we will discuss the interesting questions. There are 35 questions we have received from the social media. So what we did actually, we ran a campaign to collect the areas. Of course, I have put down the points from my experience. Vivek Mitra has also put down points from his experience. And simultaneously, we have also created a movement in the social media wherein we have started collecting the details from the different engineers. And also there are engineers like who have registered or enrolled for the course. They have also started giving their input. So those are around 35 interesting points. So that's what I will quickly disclose to you, those 35 points. And the most important part is, again, we want to collate the further important areas based on your experience, or based on your understanding about this area, right? So let me give very quickly what is the general introduction about this course. The title which we have put is the interactive process of geotechnical investigation. And why we have created this title, because this is what I have seen in my corporate journey, that the process of interaction between structural engineer and geotechnical engineer is sometimes missing. That's what we discussed, right? So that's what I am emphasizing, that it should be part of the process, wherein let's say when geotechnical investigation report is received from the project, and then there has to be interface, there has to be discussion between structural engineer and geotechnical engineer. Could be at least 3-4 rounds of discussion just to understand everything, right? And that's the overall aim of this course. So what we are going to cover in this course, let me give very quick introduction. See, first I'll be putting forward the areas what I have experienced in my career, again related to this interface between geotechnical and structural engineer, wherein there are a few case studies which I'll be disclosing. The next session will be from the Vivek Mitra. So he will be sharing very detailed presentation from his experience, whatever he has experienced in his area. Uh, and thereafter, we will have a two couple of sessions wherein we will start addressing the queries of the participant. And what we'll be doing, we'll be having a kind of a customized online forum wherein they can put their questions, so that those questions can be taken up. And the whole course is right now spread in a say 3 weeks of duration, so that participants is having ample time for the interaction with the faculty. And the most interesting part, which will be the last tutorial session, in which what we are going to do, we are going to create a soil report which will be sharing with all the participants, and knowingly that there are going to be mistakes in the soil investigation report. So the role of participants would be to interpret the soil report, and then to identify the abnormalities in the soil report. So basic idea is that the participants should be able to interpret the soil report. So this is very quick and very brief introduction about the course. Okay, so now let us move to the interesting part, like the questions whatever we have received from the social media. So that I'll be sharing with you, and those are really very interesting questions. And majority of them will be covering in this course, and part of them will be covering in the future courses. So we are actually planning a series of courses in this area, and this is the first of its kind of a course. Okay, so the first question we have received, that is how to decide a depth of borehole. So that is very important question. And see, I have also experienced, like if depth of borehole is not appropriate, or let's say not adequate, then during the project cycle, it happens that the whole project can get delay actually, because you might have to go for the another soil investigation. So so it is very important and very critical area. So that's what we'll be covering in the course, like how to decide the depth of borehole. Okay, the next question what we have got is, again, it's a very classical question, like how to decide a number of boreholes. So there are guidelines given in the Indian Standard Code, but those are actually minimum number of boreholes. So how to decide number of boreholes for the particular site? Let's say I have a very big area, and wherein I have to decide number of boreholes, because it's a very important area. So that's also will be covered. Okay, see, this is again very interesting question, that what are the different types of taste to be considered based on different types of soils, that is a clay, swelling soil, sand, and rock. So it can happen, see, in a two-way, like whenever we are talking about let's say type of test, then we might have a kind of all test which we perform. I think that may not be very economical and not very much prudent. So maybe based on type, what are the different types of test which must be included in the geotechnical investigation report? This is the question we have received. It's a very good question, right? So we will address in the course. Okay, the next question, like what we have received, is what are the field test and lab test to be performed and how they should be specified in terms of reference of geotechnical investigation projects. So what we are going to do in the course, we are having couple of ideal terms of reference for the geotechnical investigation. So that will showcase to the participants, because it is very important area, the terms of reference, because from based on the terms of reference, the entire geotechnical investigation details are decided. So it is very important document, and sometimes I have seen it is actually becoming a copy paste document. So it needs to be actually customized based on the project requirements. So we will be demonstrating a couple of terms of references, as well as we will also showcase a complete a cycle for the let's say for the contractor selection, like preparing the terms of reference, then what are the different steps involved for the let's say floating the kind of geotechnical tender in the market, and then how to shortlist geotechnical investigation agency. So that also we will cover in a broader aspect. Yeah, this is a classical question, like how to measure and ascertain a seasonal variation of groundwater table during soil investigation at the site. Okay, so Vivek Mitra has put a few points. We'll take it up. Yeah, this is an interesting question. There may be a problem if we are not able to evaluate this basic thing. So we'll cover this in our course. Perfect. Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. See, it actually varies with from soil to soil. Yeah, so terms of reference we will be showcasing in our course. Now, this is interesting question, like how to measure and ascertain seasonal variation of groundwater table during soil investigation at site. Because during, let's say, soil investigation, the groundwater table is encountered at such and such a level, and we might have performed the soil investigation, let's say, in a summer season, for example. Now, what could be the variation in a monsoon season, or what could be the overall variation in the groundwater table for say complete year, or say let's say for the different seasons. So that's very important area, and I think that may be included in the geotechnical investigation report. So but what was the question, like how to measure it? So that's what we will try to address in the course. Because see, there are many failures which we have seen because of the inadequate groundwater table consideration in the design. So this is very important point. And before we now just go to the next question, let me tell you, I was reading few papers, and they were talking about geotechnical failure which is happening, of course not in India. It was documented for the in the foreign countries, and there were around 500 foundation failure cases which were documented, very well documented, and then root cause analysis were identified. And interestingly, let me tell you, as per the report, 88 percentage of cases was a human factor in this meaning the organizational issue, the quality issue. So it is not actually technology issue. It is actually the even if it's not following the proper processes and systems while executing the project. So that number is 88 percentage. And that's where the interface between geotechnical engineer and structural engineer comes at a very big area, right? So this is an interesting question, like what kind of quality checks or quality control measure should be taken at the site during the soil investigation at site? It's a very interesting question, because sometimes you might have seen that the soil investigation is happening, but now what are the quality checks that should be performed, or rather that should be applied at a site to ascertain that whatever data we are getting, those are of reasonably of good accuracy, so that we can apply that in our design. So it's a very good point, which we will be taking up in the course. Okay, Santosh is telling that how to interpret the soil quality based on RQD value and also with the other parameters. Yeah, it's a very important question, and we have received that this kind of question also, and definitely we will cover like how to interpret that what is your quality of the rock, because it's a very important parameter. Okay, yeah, Vivek Mitra is telling that groundwater table may be different in monsoon season, right? And maybe wrong interpretation caused wrong design. Is absolutely right. Now, this is interesting question. Like, what are the differences between SPT, SCPT, and DCPT and their applications in a different projects? It's a very good question, and those details we will be covering, because it is very important that in which kind of project, or rather in which kind of soil we should go for which kind of test. And of course, see, let me tell you based on my experience that each test is having a kind of uncertainty. So as per my understanding, see, no test is a foolproof. There are certain amount of uncertainties are involved. So sometimes we might have to go for couple of test meaning couple of different type of test, so that we can ascertain whatever we are getting from the one test. So and then secondly we can compare those details with the second type of test. So it's a basically kind of a confirmatory test. Yeah, this is a very interesting question, and this question I was also having in my mind, like what is a disturbed and undisturbed sample, and how it can affect the results, like whatever lab test results are there, or whatever soil investigation results are there, how it will affect. So that's what we will be covering in the course, because it's a very important question. Yes, Vivek Mitra is telling that from Santosh Panigrai question, we will cover this in our course, right? And in fact, we have received a similar query from other participants, so that also I will showcase. And in fact, SPT and CPT we will plan in a separate courses, right? Absolutely right. See, these again, when we talk about CPT, SPT, these actually require a different course altogether. So what we'll be covering in this course, we'll give an overview, like how, what kind of different taste you can adopt. But just to understand, the SPT itself is a big subject, right? Okay. Yeah, very interesting question. Like, what kind of precautions to be taken for taking out samples of soil for the lab testing? It is very crucial and very important question in my opinion, because the handling of the sample is very important, and and then doing lab testing is again extremely important. So when the sample is transferred, like when sample is collected, and then when it is transferred to the lab, so there are a number of precautions to be should be taken, so that we will cover in the course, that what are the major precautions we should take. And generally speaking, see, we can say that the field tests are relatively more reliable than the lab testing, right? But in certain cases, we will have to depend upon the lab testing, because to simulate certain kind of conditions in a lab, which we cannot do on the field. So definitely, it's a very important question, which we will cover in the course. So essentially, what we are going to do is the we in the customized forum, again there is going to be the number of discussion which will happen during the course, and then still number of more questions which will be generating in the mind of participants, and that we will try to attempt and address in the course. And of course, if it is not possible to address in this course, then definitely we are planning a series of this kind of different courses focusing on the interface between geotechnical and structural engineering. Okay, this is an interesting question. Like, what is the CBR value, and can we go for a certain advanced test for more reliable results for the payment design? So we'll give you a brief introduction about it. But this itself is a big subject. So if required, there can be a separate course specifically for the payment design. Okay. Now, which tests are required for establishing the chemical properties of soil? Let's say mild, moderate, or severe. So that will be covered in the course. Okay, this is the question we have received. Like details of consolidation test and calculation, details of procedures of cyclic plate load test and plate load test, etc. So what we will do, we will give quick overview about this, but this could be a separate course actually, focusing on these details. Okay. Okay. The next question is, what kind of questions or details to be gathered from structural engineer before commencing the geotechnical investigation? Now, it is very crucial point. Like, before commencing the geotechnical investigation, what kind of interface should happen with the structural engineer? See, we were talking about the interface after publishing the soil report, but this is very interesting question which talks about, like, before commencing the geotechnical investigation, what details or what kind of questions which should be gathered from the structural engineer, so that we go in a proper direction. So it's a very important question which we'll try to address in the course. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling, Bhavin, right, we will have more interaction with the participant and find out their problems and try to address. So our the whole design of the course is wherein we have to make it in a complete interactive mode, and we want to focus on real practical issues, and we will try to address based on our experience. So it may be possible, see, we may not be able to answer or your few questions, but we may come back later with few details. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling that the CBR test overview of various values will be covered, and we will have another course for the rigid and flexible payment design. Yeah, perfect. Okay, Harish Bhai is telling that for evaluation of C and phi shear parameters, okay, most of the lab just do box shear test, and then they don't put sample in the triaxial shell. So what is your opinion on testing the soil sample? Yeah, yeah, it's a very good question, and let us see, Vivek Mitra will shortly respond to it. So I'm just right now reading out the questions, interesting questions which we have received from the social media. And like Harish Bhai, you can also start putting your questions, like whatever you have experienced as a gap area. So we will try to address it in our course to the extent it is possible. And if it is not possible, we will take it up in the future course. But the overall idea is we want to collect the real practical issues, so that it becomes whatever details we are discussing should be immediately useful into the practice. That is the overall idea. Okay, yeah, Vivek Mitra is telling that the question of Harish Bhai will be addressed during our course. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And what Vivek Mitra is telling, that the point which is raised by Harish Bhai is absolutely right. Okay, so the next interesting question which we have received, yeah, is yeah, can you please showcase the ideal terms of reference for the geotechnical investigation? So these already we have discussed that we'll be showcasing the terms of reference, because it's that from this is the utmost important document, and from this document everything starts. Okay, this is the next question, like what are the appropriate specifications for the engineered field, and what may be the maximum SPC value for the engineered field? So see, this question we generally encounter in our routine projects, that let's say there is a certain area of the project wherever there is an engineered field which we are doing, and then there may be let's say a minor foundations, or there could be a major foundations which are coming on the engineered field. Now what could be the maximum SPC value? That is the question. It's a very interesting question. And what could be the specifications for the engineered field? So we will cover briefly into the course, because this itself is a big area about the engineered field, right? Okay, yeah, good morning Olao. Shyam Verma is telling that in this course sheet pile analysis will be covered. Yeah, sheet pile analysis will not be covered in this course, but we are planning a separate courses on a deep excavation. So in those kind of courses, we will cover the sheet piles and other details. Okay, Olao is telling that need to give a short revision of geotechnical definitions. Yeah, definitely. I think this is a very interesting point, and which you have touched upon, and definitely we will do it. And there is already we have created certain basic documents. So just to recap everything, all geotechnical terms, so that you can be on board immediately. So definitely we will give a short revisions of important geotechnical definitions which will be using throughout the course, so that it become a meaningful, right? It's a very good point. Okay, for the Shyam Verma question, Vivek Mitra is telling that the sheet pile design will be covered in a different course, right? Okay, the next question which we have received is for a rock. Like it is the same question what Santosh was putting, that for rock, how to interpret and identify whether it is a weathered rock, solid rock, etc. from the soil exploration. So and how to interpret the RQD results. So RQD is the only parameter, or there are other parameters, or like how as a structural engineer you can just quickly have a look to the soil report, and based on those values you can make your interpretation. So it's a very important question, and whenever there is a rock encountered on the site, this question comes, and it's a very important question. Yeah, this is a very important question. Like what it says, that what are your views for the rock socketing? See, I have also seen in a practice that this is used in a, what I would say, in a number of projects, but I have always seen a difference of opinion between geotechnical consultants, even and also in the group of structural engineers. So we will give our understanding on this rock socketing into the course, because it's, yeah, and yes, it's a very interesting question. So ultimately, see what we have to see in the rock socketing, that how much, like whether like is it really justifying to the design what is being recommended into the report? I think that from that perspective we need to see it. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling yes, deep excavation design will be a separate course. Okay, okay, Lao is telling that as well as the real time application, right? Okay, yeah, Vivek Mitra is telling that yes, rock classification will be covered in detail in the course, because it's a very important subject. Okay, Arthur Thomas is telling that the footing on black cotton soil, will we cover this topic? So let Vivek Mitra respond to it, because we have received this kind of a question. So definitely we will cover certain details, but let Vivek Mitra also respond to it. Okay, so what Vivek Mitra is telling, one a point for the next question, that is a sandstone and the basalt having same RQD will give a different UCS values. Okay, okay. Santosh is telling that the thumb rule where engineers can go on site and they check the quality of soil by observation to correlate with the report. Is it possible? Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Santosh. Let Vivek Mitra respond to it. Yes, the black cotton soil identification will be covered in the Arthur question. Okay. Okay, this is the question which we have received. Like how the individual borehole should be plotted along with the reference level, and what are the good practices? See, I have seen in generally the whenever the soil exploration is happening, the bore logs are being taken from the existing ground level, and at that time maybe cutting filling might not have been done, because sometimes geotechnical investigation is processed at a very early stage. At that time, probably your finished ground level for your project is not identified, and I have seen a major problems in the interpretation of the report. There were certain reports in which the reference level was not mentioned, and because of that your foundation could be grossly it could be on an inappropriate soil. So if there is a problem in the reference level. And if we talk about, let's say, oil and gas refineries, or say thermal power project, or let's say big scale project. So in that project, those kind of projects, it is quite possible that you will have a different grade levels. So it is very much important that your reference level should be indicated in the borehole, and the structural engineer should be able to correlate. So this is a very interesting question. So we will showcase a couple of boreholes and then how it should be represented in the soil report. Yeah, this is a very big question. Like, what are the classification of soil? I think it is going a little bit towards Santosh's question. I think partly, but what are the different classifications of soil, or that there are also mixture of different type of soil? Could be silty sand, sandy silt, CH. So there are different terminology which we have listened. Okay, but what are the different classification of soil? It is itself is a big subject altogether. Okay. So meanwhile, Vivek Mitra has told that for evaluation of safe bearing capacity, the separate courses will be covered. Okay, this is the way he has replied, that the thumb rule shall be avoided as far as possible if it's important project. Yeah, that's a very good point. So. Uh, so you should not exclusively rely on the thumb rules. You must go for the proper geotechnical investigation. Okay. Okay, this we have seen. Now, this is an interesting question from the structural engineering or foundation design perspective, that what are the different kind of soil which are good for the foundation, or which kind of soil when there is mentioned in the report, then engineer shall be alert. So, for example, let us say the SM is better, and let's say CH is not good relatively. So, so can you give the different type of soil which are good for the foundation? And this kind of soil, if it is there in the report, then there has to be alarm. The engineer should be alerted. So it's a very good question. So we will cover that what are the good soil and what are uh, the kind of a dangerous soil relatively. Okay. This question which we have received, it's a very interesting question, like how to differentiate between the rock and the local boulder at site during execution. See, I also experienced in a couple of projects like uh, the rock which was mentioned in the soil report, which was at a sufficiently what I would say at a depth, but let's say there was a call from a side that now the rock is encountered at very shallow level, which was very shallow with respect to geotechnical investigation. So now there may be possibility that it could be a local boulder, that it is possible. So this is very interesting question, like how to differentiate between rock and local boulder at site. So we'll try to address it in the course. Okay, this is a question someone has put it up. Like, can you please explain the typical calculation of SBC for the shear and settlement? So we'll give a very quick overview about it, like how the SBC is being calculated for shear and settlement. Okay. Meanwhile, Vivek Mitra has told that a liquid limit of 30 and a liquid limit of 60 has a different properties, and they should be handled accordingly, right? So liquid limit itself is a big subject, I think. And based on liquid limit, there are so what I would say number of parameters which we can derive, or rather we can understand the type of soil. Okay, Santosh is telling that sometimes the thumb rules are required so that the structural engineer can ask, or rather go back to geotechnical engineer. Sometimes it happens that the geotech report shows a good quality, but on site it is not. Yeah, yeah, it's a and I think, see, that's where Santosh, you have said that the interface is required. See, what I've experienced, I'll tell you very quick experience in a few projects, because whenever we are doing a soil exploration, let's say we are not doing exploration for the entire site, we are just doing random boreholes, okay? And soil itself is a heterogeneous material, so there could be a large variation. In one of the project, I can tell you that on a pipe rack which was having a span of let's say maximum 10 to 15 meters. So on a one side the rock was at a around 20-meter depth, and on the another side the rock was encountered at a depth of around 3 to 4 meters, and which was not envisaged into the soil investigation report. And there was a very big impact on the project, lot of reconciliation, lot of recalculation, because your one foundation is sitting on the very deep foundation, another foundation or another lake is sitting on the shallow foundation. So what I mean to say that there could be a lot of variation even after doing the geotechnical investigation. So that's why I personally prefer that there has to be joint visit of geotechnical and structural engineer on the site after excavating the soil up to foundation level, and then we should ascertain that whatever kind of soil we have considered as a part of geotechnical investigation report or as a part of the foundation design, it should be there on the site. So your point is very valid. Okay, Hemant is telling that, sir, how to determine the pile capacity? Does we calculate using any software? Yeah, so Hemant, just let me tell you, the next course we have already started preparing exclusively on the pile design. So wherein we will focus on the pile design from the geotechnical aspect. So Vivek Mitra will talk about geotechnical aspect of the pile design, and I'll be taking care of the structural design of the pile aspect. So it's a where already it is the course is in the pipeline, and it will cover in what I would say very great detail into that course. Okay, Rabinder Shekhar is telling that should we insist for geotechnical report for the low height building, say 3 or 4 storied buildings in seismic zone 4 or 5? Yeah, very interesting question. I'll let Vivek Mitra respond to it. See, in my opinion, we should insist for a geotechnical investigation report, even if it's for a low height building, because you're already telling it's a 3 or 4 storied building, and seismic zone is 4 or 5. So in my opinion, definitely the soil investigation should be there. Yeah. So what Vivek Mitra's point of view on that question is, yes, we should insist on the geotechnical report, right? Okay, and the Santosh Panigrahi's apprehension is right, and we will try to address in our course. Yeah, perfect. Devendra is telling that while calculating the SBC in the rock from the field, we get only UCS and PLI. Is it okay to calculate only on the basis of UCS test? Because to calculate RMR, we need a joint orientation, continuity, and spacing. Excellent question, and I think that's what we are going to cover it in the course, right? And let Vivek Mitra respond to it, respond to this query in the next chat. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll be just showcasing other few questions which we have received. Yeah. This is a question which we received, like how it is decided that the pile foundations are required. It's a very interesting question. Like, what should be the demarcation between open foundation and the pile foundation? And see, I always see that there could be three kind of scenario. That is a, let's say, that is a absolute case wherein pile foundations are mandatory. There is an absolute case when open foundations can do because it's a very good soil. But this problem arises when you have a touch and go situation wherein the both kind of foundation are just fitted for the site. And I think that that's very important area. So that this is the way we will address it in the course. Like what kind of scenario in which pile foundations should be provided. Okay. Okay, Vivek Mitra has told that the Devendra, we will cover this query in our SBC course. Okay, so for SBC, we will having a separate course itself, and then in that definitely it will be covered in greater details. Okay, this is a very interesting question. Like, are the recommendations to be prepared in isolation or should be prepared jointly with the structural engineer? Which one is the better practice and why? So in my opinion, the recommendations must be prepared in consultation with the structural engineer, because structural engineer can guide geotechnical engineer that there what kind of a loading, which loading intensity is there, what are the special structures, what are heavy structures, what are kind of a light structures in the overall plan. So based on that, I think always the recommendations part. See, there are two parts in the geotechnical investigation report. First is the all kind of a testing. So we have defined that this is the type of soil what we have on the site, right? But the second part, which is the most important, which is the recommendation part, so that needs to be done, I think, jointly by a structural engineer and a geotechnical engineer. So as a process, it may happen that the geotechnical engineer can put a draft recommendation probably, and then definitely those can be fine tuned based on the interaction. But this is a very important point which we will address in the course. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling that Bhavin, there we need interaction between structural and geotechnical engineers, whether to provide pile foundation or not. Yes, absolutely right. The interaction is definitely required between structural engineer and geotechnical engineer while deciding the type of foundation. Now, this is a very interesting question. Like, what is the importance of zone of influence while deriving the SBC? See, you might have seen in a soil report. I'll just give you very quick introduction that as your size of the footing increases, your SBC is actually going down. So let us say I have a raft foundation. So for my raft foundation, the SBC value will be relatively on the lower side. Now, let us say I'm talking about very compact plan in the sense I do not have liberty to put a foundations of required size. So foundations are just touching each other. Now there were many projects in which we were keeping only 50 clearance or say 100 clearance between two foundations. Now what actually happens now whenever we take up the SVC value from the geotechnical investigation, so those values are actually given as an isolated foundation. But when we have foundations which are very close to each other, then there will be a zone of influence, and because of that the SBC will be actually reduced or needs to be modified. So I think this is very interesting question which will be covered in a detail in the course. But again, in these the interface is very much important. Okay, this is a question which we have received. Now it happens in a few cases, like we have a weak soil which is a sandwich between the strong layer. So let's say I have a strong layer in the topsoil, and then there is a weak soil, and then there is again a strong soil. Strong meaning relatively better soil. So in that type, what could be the impact of the foundation design? So that we will address in the course. This is very interesting question. Now this is a big area actually. See what is said that in the recommendation, the SBC for shear and the allowable bearing pressure for settlement may be printed separately instead of recommending the lower of two values. So in the course, I'll give very detailed elaboration on this aspect, because I was always insisting for the SBC for shear and settlement separately from the geotechnical consultant, because there is another practice also which is going on wherein the lower value will be given in the geotechnical investigation report. Now what are the pros and cons of both the details, and that we will discuss in very much detail into the during the course. But this is very important question, like what is being said that in the recommendation, should it be separate values which must be given in the report, or it has to be the lower value? Yeah, so this is a question I think someone has asked during the chat. So, like, what are the different kind of treatment which may be specified for the swelling soil? So, generally, sometimes we encountered a swelling soil. Now, what are the different kind of treatments which we can do into the projects? So, this we will give overview of this, that what could be the different kind of treatments which we can give. But generally speaking, what I have seen that the execution is very important criteria, whatever treatment which is being identified. So execution, when I say, the constructability should be there and the quality control must be there on the site, whatever treatment which is identified, right? Okay, yeah. Vivek Mitra is telling that we may be in problem if very soft layer crosses the zone of influence. So one need to be very careful in such cases. Yeah, perfect. So that's why I think it's a very important thing, because see sometimes I have seen that this weak layer is coming. Now, if I have a size of foundation which is a bigger, then the zone of influence could go into the softer layer, and if my foundation size is say relatively lower, then I may not be going into this softer layer. So it's a very important area, and I think that from that perspective the foundation design should be reconsidered. Okay, the swelling soil overview will be given in this course. So we'll give a quick overview of the swelling soil, and then what could be a different type of different types which we can do. Okay, one more interesting question, like, can you please share the quick tips to identify the major abnormalities in the soil reports? And I think this is very interesting question, and we will try to address something so that you can have a very quick review of the soil reports. So that's what we are going to do in a last session, which is a kind of a tutorial wherein we will manipulate purposefully the soil report so that you can see that what are the major abnormalities, right? Because ultimately the interpretation is very very important. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling that for ground improvement of soft soil, the separate courses will be taken. Yeah, so the ground improvement itself is a big subject, and that will be taken up in the separate course. Olao is telling that the most geotechnical reports have a settlement of have a statement of limitations that the structural consultant need to confirm as at site. Yeah, I think this is I think that's where, see, generally the practice what we were following is as I told you, that there has to be a joint visit of structural engineer and geotechnical engineer on the site whenever we let's say we have excavated the soil up to the foundation level. So see, it may happen. See, I have experienced in a few projects that whatever soil which we have conceived, or rather which was mentioned in the geotechnical investigation report, it was not there for a particular foundations, or the particular localized area. And then we had to do a kind of we had to revisit the entire foundation design for those localized area. And now if I am going for the let's say for the higher depth for the localized area, so now there is also problems of differential settlement. So there has to be a very close interaction between structural engineer and geotechnical engineer. And I think this is what we must identify in terms of reference. So that kind of question also we have received. So if it is already say mentioned in the terms of reference that we will have a joint visit wherein we confirm the type of soil, so that we can do like whatever precautions we have to take, that we can do. Because as I told you, like the see, when we talk about the failure of the structure, suppose we do not have any definite statistics with us, but I can tell you based on my experience that the geotechnical failure is one of the major cause of the failure. And when we talk about the geotechnical failure, what I've experienced, the interface between the structural and the geotechnical engineer is extremely important. So that's what we are going to focus in this entire course, right? Yes, Vivek Mitra is telling that the major abnormalities in the soil report we will try to address in our course, right? Okay, yeah, Rabinder Shekhar is telling that these days there is a great emphasis for a proof designs for the structural designing, right? Now, should not be it for geotechnical reports, since whole of the design basis is geotechnical report. I think this is an excellent question, because your whole structural design, and just now see what I said, I was going through a few literatures, and there are not very much definite statistics we have. But whatever literature I have seen, based on that I can tell you the geotechnical failure is one of the major reason for the failure. That's what I understand. Because see, whenever you talk about, let's say, structural design, so you have an advanced software, you are applying all kinds of loading, let's say about earthquake, wind, etc., everything you apply. But the interface is one of the area. And now point which you have highlighted is the extremely important, that should we have kind of a proof checking of the geotechnical investigation report. And I think this is where this is a kind of a process we must I think include in the project. It is an excellent suggestion. Okay. Yeah. Vivek Mitra is telling that the Olao's questions, like he is responding to the questions of Olao. I am sure after our course, these complications will be cleared. Great. And as indicated earlier, there should be intermingling between geotechnical and the structures, right? Okay, and Vivek Mitra is responding to Rabinder Shekhar's query. Yes, there should be proof checking for geotechnical investigation report. I think Rabinder Shekhar has touched up a very excellent point. Uh, and if we can have this kind of a proof checking, then the major abnormalities, because if it is being proof checked, let's say by a qualified a geotechnical engineer, so major abnormalities could be removed in the project, or from the soil report. So this is an excellent point. Yeah. And I think we must emphasize this kind of a practice in all the projects. Okay, one more interesting question which we received. Okay, this we have seen. Yeah, okay, this is the question. Like, can you please share one of the ideal soil reports? So we will share it. We have few soil reports, so we will share the content of the soil report, what should be the structure of the soil report, how it should be written. So those that will be demonstrated in the course. Okay. Yeah, this is an interesting question which we have received. That can you please include, or can you please elaborate, like how to prepare the report, and then how to give the recommendations, and that's where the report preparation, which we have already seen, that which we will be showcasing a few soil reports. And whenever it comes about recommendations, see, I was referring to the practices which is happening in the foreign countries. So there is a separate engineer who is named as a foundation design engineer, and then who is doing who is preparing the recommendations. So of course, in our country, I'm at least in my opinion, where while preparing the recommendations, there has to be close interface between geotechnical and structural engineer, because I've seen in few projects the foundation sizes which were mentioned, where those were not at all adequate for the structure. So the SBC values which were given in the report, we cannot utilize directly into the foundation design, right? And then there was a proof checking agency. So now again we were going back to the geotechnical engineer, and then he was revising everything. It was taking too much time. I think the during preparing recommendations part, there has to be close interaction about the loading intensity. I think that's a very important part. Okay, there are a couple of points. Hemant is telling that, sir, the water table is the most likely issue while construction, right? If there is a raft foundation, what are a checklist to overcome the water table complication? Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think Vivek Mitra has already answered it. He's telling that yes, overview of the dewatering will be covered in the course, and regarding dewatering, there will be a detailed separate course. So in this course, we are going to give a quick overview about the dewatering, and in fact, we received a couple of questions for dewatering also. So let us see. I think it will be coming in the sequence. Yeah, this is an interesting question. Like details for supporting the excavation, if applicable in the site, like for which type of soil it should be included in the report along with the limit of height. Like, so what is the question? Let's say we are excavating on the site for the foundation, for placing the foundation, and now, should I go for supporting the soil? Like that means any temporary support is required so that soil doesn't cave in during the execution. So it's a very interesting and very detailed question. So what we will do, we'll give a brief overview about this, but these will be covered in very much detail into the deep excavation. Yeah. So and for deep excavation, we are planning a separate detailed course. Okay. Okay, see, this is what we were talking about, that the TOR terms of reference should include at least 4 joint site visits of structural engineer and geotechnical engineer immediately after excavation of soil up to foundation level. What is your opinion? And I think this is what we have discussed. I think it must be done. This is an excellent point. It must be included. So that the costing and the time is already counted by the geotechnical investigation agency, so that during execution, you can do it immediately. But generally, I have seen that these area like joint visit is not included as a part of terms of reference. So what happens generally, the geotechnical investigation agency generally they prepare a soil report, and their involvement is actually decreasing or almost zero in few projects I have seen after submitting the report. So if this is included as a part of TOR, so they can also build up cost for this as well as the time for this. And since the cost is built up already, so that these joint site visits can be executed, and I think it can help immensely for the project. Yeah, it's an excellent point. Okay, yeah, Rabinder Shekhar is telling, should not it be mandatory, sir, that while issuing structural safety certificate, geotechnical engineer should also affix his signature along with structural engineer? Okay. I think this is a very important point which you have touched upon, and I think at least these also we can discuss to a great length during the course, because I have very uh, very important ideas in my mind, because I was also thinking in this direction since long. But you have touched upon a very important point. And Vivek Mitra is telling that yes, Rabinder, in our opinion, it should be mandatory proof checking of soil report. But again, coming back to this point about the structural safety, because again, I'll touch upon this point that whenever we are talking about structural safety, I have seen that the geotechnical failure is one of the major area, apart from, let's say, the structural failure. So whenever you are giving the structural stability certificate, so at that time geotechnical engineer should be also accountable. This is the point which you are highlighting, and this is, I think, a very excellent point. And there are certain details which are in my mind, which I will share with the prospective participants during the course. But your point is very valid, and it must be, I think, taken into consideration. Okay, Arthus is telling that will we cover a course on a footing to be designed on a sloping strata? Yeah, this see the footing design on a sloping strata itself is a very specialized and separate data. So we can cover it in the separate course. So, so what we are planning, there could be a foundation design kind of a course wherein we can consider a different kind of foundations, and then uh, we can consider, or rather we can club a few different kind of foundations. And this could be one of the type of foundation, and then we can consider it. But this is an excellent point. Like whenever the footing needs to be designed on a sloping strata, very high level of precaution should be taken, in my opinion. So definitely we will try to address it in the future courses. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling that the joint visit is an excellent point to avoid further complications. Yeah, I think this is an excellent point which someone has suggested, that the joint visit must be there, so that on-site decisions can be taken. See, let's say if my structure is executed, uh, and then if I come to know about the problems, then it's very difficult to rectify. So for example, what I mean to say, let's say I have built up the entire structure, and then there are settlement issue, for example. Now retrofitting the structure is extremely difficult and extremely time consuming, as well as it involves a very great amount of cost. But if we could have this kind of a process wherein there is a joint visit, and let's say we have altered the type of foundation so that we could avoid those kind of settlement in the structure, then I think it's a great saving for the structure, right? And then as you rightly said, that it can avoid all further big complications. Okay, yeah. Olao is telling that the issue comes when geotechnical consultants are not available close to the site under consideration. Yeah, yes, you're right. Like when the geotechnical consultants are not available, and your site is, let's say, in a very remote area. So in that type, in those kind of projects, like how to proceed. And I think this is a very important area, because when we talk about, let's say, the big projects, or the let's say big scale projects, so generally we have a kind of a, let's say, reputed geotechnical consultants. But when we have the remote projects or a small scale projects, let's say just relatively small scale projects, and geotechnical technical consultants are not available in the vicinity. So so what should be done? I think that is a very interesting question. Okay, Vivek Mitra is responding to Arthur's query that the specialized course we may cover depending upon the request from the participants. Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, so this is all. We have received very interesting questions. Okay, couple of questions. Here again, which I have received, I'll tell you. But meanwhile, couple of comments are popping up. Let me take it up. Okay, Rabinder Shekhar is telling that, sir, what is the optimum time to carry out geotechnical investigation of soil during the year? I mean, summer, winter, or monsoon, or a dry season? I think this is an excellent question. Let Vivek Mitra respond to it. So, what is the question? Like, what could be, or what is the optimum time? Like, let's say I want to do geotechnical investigation. So now I should prefer a which season? It should be summer, winter, or it should be a dry season. Yeah, so let Vivek Mitra respond to it. Okay, for Olao's query, Vivek Mitra has told that I agree there should be some guideline develop how to involve geotechs throughout the life cycle of the project. Okay, okay. Arthus is telling okay. Okay, and Olao is telling that I am talking of smaller projects, say 5,000 to 10,000 meters square. Yeah. Yeah, I have understood your question. You're talking about small scale projects, and then let's say a geotechnical consultant is not available in the vicinity. So what should be done in that kind of scenario? And I think this question could be on a majority of these small scale projects, wherein the geotechnical consultants are not available in the local vicinity. So it's an excellent question, and we will try to address it in a very great detail in the course. Okay, Vivek Mitra is responding to Rabinder's query that any season is okay, but extreme rains and extreme summer are a difficult season to carry out the soil exploration. Yeah, yeah. Okay. There are also a couple of questions which I have received, like how to decide the modulus of subgrade for soil structure interaction. Now, this is a big subject altogether. So, generally, these subgrade modulus is not mentioned in the soil report. And now, whenever we have to go for a soil structure interaction, then subgrade modulus is required. Now, this subgrade modulus is derived by a structural engineer using some empirical formula. Now I think that's a very what I would say inappropriate way. So I was telling my team that you please interact with the geotechnical consultant. It's okay, you derive something from the literature, but you consult geotechnical engineer for the value of subgrade modulus. So that also will talk about subgrade modulus, like how to take it, and then how to, or rather what kind of value which we should take, whether it should be based on the working SBC value or the ultimate SBC value. So that was the question. Okay. Yeah, one more question which we received that was regarding the under rim piles. So it was for the single bulb and the double bulb under rim piles. So what was the question, that how much effectiveness we can entrust upon under rim piles during the let's say for the force transfer. So So the question was pertaining to the quality and the execution. So what was the question? Like whether the bulb is getting formed or not. Okay, and I think this is very important question. So generally, in my opinion, the bulb which is there, which is considered for the design, I think hardly it is getting formed on the site, and sometimes it is used extensively the underrim piles, and the whole tension force. See, let's say my foundation is in axial tension, so the whole tension which is being transferred through that bulb, single bulb or a double bulb, and I think it's personally speaking, I am not with the under impiles, because there are a lot of problems with respect to the bulb formation, and the entire tension load capacity transfer mechanism is dependent on that bulb. Okay, but it's a very good question which we have received. Okay, okay, yeah, Ravinder Shekhar is telling, thank you, so most welcome. Okay, Hemant is telling that if a differential settlement occurs after construction, how to overcome that settlement? Okay, see, I have seen in few projects it happened actually, and let me tell you honestly, it's a very difficult. Now the solution will vary from the project to project, based on structure to structure, based on type of soil, as well as the kind of settlement what we are observing. But there are many cases, what I can recollect right now, wherein I experienced that there was a settlement issues. Now, of course, the overcoming to this settlement issue is a big topic, but definitely the overview we can discuss. Okay, Vivek Mitra is telling that the underrim pile I do not support. I still to get what purpose it serves. Now, even I also have the same question, like what kind of purpose it serves, because the bulb which we are considering in the design is actually not getting formed on the site. So there were a few experiments done actually. The bulb was prepared like as per the execution or as per the drawing, and then those pile were actually pulled out. So and then it was virtually seen that there was no bulb. It was a very partial bulb which was formed, right? So so it is not going to serve the purpose for which it is being used. So I agree with you, yeah. Okay, yeah. Bhairav is telling that, sir, which type, if pile structure interaction is capable for nuclear reactor containment structure, why? So I'm not getting your question, that which type, if pile structure interaction is capable for a nuclear reactor containment structure, why? Can you please elaborate your question with more details, Bhairav? Then I can respond to it. Okay, so these are the very quick questions which we have received from the social media. So that's what we will be covering in the course. Now, okay, Bhairav is put now. This is in the foundation, but still I'm not getting your query, that which type, if pile structure interaction is capable for nuclear reactor containment structure, why? So can you please elaborate your query? I'm still not getting your answer. Sorry, your question. Okay. Okay. So so in short, we have received around 35 to 40 interesting questions. Still, we are receiving the questions, but we are going to focus on the all practical problems which are happening with respect to the interface between structural and geotechnical engineer in the entire course, right? So 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 I think there were many interesting points which came up during the discussion, and I think the Ravinder Shekhar has told very interestingly, and I think that's an excellent thing, that the proof checking of the geotechnical investigation must be included in the as a practice of the project, and I think it's an excellent suggestion, and I think it can be done immediately in the new projects. Right. Okay. Meanwhile, Vivek Mitra is telling that Bhairav, it will be all depending on load configuration. As far as I know, the blast loading is one of the major load. Okay. 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 Thank you. Okay, so there are very interesting questions we have also received. Like Olao has said that what should be done for the small scale projects, and I think this question is for very large number of small scale projects, because when we talk about say large scale projects, we might have a proper geotechnical investigation agency is there, but for small scale projects, what should be done? So that's also very interesting question we have received. Harish Bhai has also put up very interesting point for the lab testing, and many other interesting point which have come forward. So still, if there is any other point, you can put into the live chat. Okay, and in the next session, most probably we will be talking about the wind tunnel testing, probably if everything goes right. Okay, and I am now putting the link of the course, where if you want to see the more details and for registration, you can refer this link which I have mentioned in the chat, and also it is available in the video description. So you just click on it, and then you will get more details about the course. Okay. Okay, yeah. Vivek Mitra is telling allow to make structural engineer geotechnically capable. Yes, a very interesting thing that we must make structural engineer geotechnically capable. And see, personally, I always see it in from the different perspective. That when we talk about structural engineer and geotechnical engineer, so actually both are civil engineers. So the geotechnical engineer is also aware about structural engineering, and at the same time, structural engineer is also aware about geotechnical engineering. But what is happening? The process or the project flow is such. There is a lot of the projects are becoming now. All projects are becoming fast track projects, and because of that, the interface is somehow it is getting missed out, and I think that's where we will try to focus, so that we can rebuild the entire thing, and we can create more awareness about the interface. And there are also few case studies which we'll discuss during the course, that how your project can make or break if your interface is not carried out properly. Okay, so thank you all for the participation. And okay, and now I am signing off. So if you have further queries or any details, you can put into the chat box. And I have already shared the link from where you can get more details about the course. And also that link is available in the video description. Okay, so let's meet on a next Sunday. Okay, okay, thank you. I am signing off now. Bye.